Well, welcome
Right.
back.
Yeah.
Good to see you again.
Boy, I'll tell you, my mind is just filled with wonderful things
Yeah.
uh, about who God is, who I am, who you are, who all the people listening to this are. God is He's declared who we are in the very beginning. Some of the first words out of His mouth. Let us let us make man like us.
Mm, yeah.
Woo!
Wow.
We use a lot of this religious uh, talk sometimes, and to me, it's empty of meaning.
Yeah.
Um, let us make man in our image and likeness. That first of all, I don't know if those were the words that God used. I have
Mhm.
to just trust the translators knew what they were talking about,
Yeah.
which I usually doubt. but it I need to put that I need to put meaning behind that because it doesn't mean a lot to me. When
Mhm.
I think about this, basically, God was just saying, let us make man like us.
Mhm.
And I know a lot of people would freak out when you say that, but that's exactly what he did. And when we get over into the New Testament, we find out that's exactly what did because Jesus was made exactly like us. Uh,
Mhm.
I don't know. It,
Yeah. That's you just hit two huge things. Jesus just like us and God creating us in his image. The translation, I get you, and that's what we talk about a ton, but if that's if that's right, it still even gets ignored. Like people say, they hear it say, "Let us make man in our image and our likeness," and then they go, "Well, he's different." And you're like,
yeah,
"Well, wait a sec. He just
uh,
said, he just
yeah,
said,
you're right.
no, we're not." And then Jesus being like us, that's huge because I know in the early centuries, people, there was some writings where it was like he floated, like he never touched the ground.
Uh,
He was a
yeah,
spirit or something almost, but he wasn't. He was a guy who was born just like any of us are, and we make him very different, just like we do with God in the beginning. We go, no, he's different. He's way different than us, and they're
I know.
not.
I've got friends that preach that say the same thing that
Yeah,
God is other than us.
yeah,
I just, I never until it came out of my mouth, and then you caught it just now.
yeah,
Um, let us make man in our image. It just means let us make man like us.
yeah.
And if anybody has any doubt about that, um, Jesus came out of the womb just like us.
Hmm.
Well, if God had made us different than him, then when Jesus came out of the womb, he'd have had to come out different
Hmm.
than he did.
Hmm.
He'd had to come out of the womb, however we were. And the fact is we know who God was talking about when he said, "Let us make man like us," because we see how he made Jesus. And
Hmm.
Jesus came to save us as us, which,
Yeah,
I mean, sometimes you just change the way you say something and say the same thing, but you say it with different words, and it it opens up volumes to you.
yeah.
C.S. Lewis was concerned about translating. He said that too much translating, the implication was most, if not all, is just basically rephrasing of previous translations. So
Hmm.
everybody that comes next, they may translate, but the translating is basically just a change of a word here, or change of a word there, or maybe a
Yeah.
word order, or whatever, and it's nothing that enables the reader to get a new understanding of significance. And he
In
said that,
fact, it's
you
probably worse, like the phone game.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a little
yeah.
different. Yeah, and maybe not clearer.
But he believed that we needed to take and convert, translate or convert with modern understanding of words. And some people I think have tried to do that, but a really pathetic job.
Yeah.
Um, we need to do, I think, what I've done and still do, which is um, to get into the heart and the mind of what God is thinking. What is He saying? And instead of trying to make say better what other people have said in the past, that's not what
Mhm,
I'm about. I don't want to
mhm,
say better what people said in the past, because I think so much of what people have said in the past, uh, it may even be good, it may even be true, but it's not what God said. And
mhm.
my wife and I had a long discussion about this morning, and sometimes she struggles with some of the stuff I say because it's outside of her normal way of thinking, and
Sure.
we all like to think in our normal way of thinking. I mean, who wants to change the way they think? Well,
Right.
I did. I still
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
Every time I change the way I think because I realize how God thinks that
Mhm,
was not like I had been thinking,
mhm,
I find that my life improves. It changes. It
mhm,
gets better.
mhm.
And I don't know. I'm excited
It's
about where I'm going. And better than, we talk about going to heaven, and that doesn't excite me.
mm,
What excites me is where I am right now,
mm,
and I say that knowing that we are all living in realities that each one of us has created by what we think
mhm,
what we are knowing, and what we are believing.
mhm. So you were saying that the translations, are often translations of translations, and that's such a funny thing because we don't want to cast doubt on the original writings, right? Like that stuff was
Correct.
accurate. They said the guys that Jesus knew or were right after him, that stuff was all recorded really well, but we in the context of the time, and then we take it and try and put it into our context with our language and our ideas or sensibilities or whatever. It makes it hard to get that original intent and meaning and some of the language. Um, so yeah, that's just a funny thing. But you were saying that, um, yeah, you were talking to Sandra and she was struggling with it. Oh, because of the way you think. You were saying how and you've changed the way you think, but nobody really wants to change the way they think. And I was going to add that it's hard to change the way you think because that's how you think. I mean, you're using the tool to think with to
You know
think
what?
differently, and that's hard.
That's a great point to begin with.
Mm,
How do we change the way I think? I mean, psychiatrists and psychologists often know that the problem somebody has is the way they think,
yeah.
and so how do they change the way they think? How do they do that? God gave us the way to think. He said, "Obey me, just obey me," and that will change your think. I mean, you think back to the wilderness when God told them that they should take the word of God, put it
Mm,
on their phylacteries, put it on their doorposts, talk to each other going up and down the street, write it on their forehead, whatever. Put his word every place, and talk to each other and talk to yourself about his word constantly.
Mm.
That was what God was saying. Well, what was God up to? Because it sounds like a new religion to me. That's the way we treat it. It's a new religion.
Mm.
But it wasn't. God knew that they had an identity problem, a serious identity problem. They had been in slavery for a long, long time, for generations. So the mindset of the children of Israel was terrible. They saw themselves as grasshoppers. And God knew that and told them that they were his children. He was the nation of Israel. It was uh, they belonged to God, and he was their father, and he treated them like children, and they acted like children. And the trouble is that over all those years, they developed a mindset, an identity that they were worthless. Well,
Mm.
you know what? You lived the way they did for generations, and the way the Egyptians treated them. It would be perfectly understandable that they would have a terrible self-image. And
Yeah.
that was what God was out to do. And so he gave them his words and he said, "Obey me." Now, the problem is that today the word obey means to do what you're told.
Hmm.
That's I mean, I understand it that way. Most every people do it. Obey me means do what I told you to do. But that's
Hmm.
not what God said. And we find in the New Testament clarification of what obedience is. And very simply, the word is hupo akuo. That would be I obey. But the thing is it's remember I've talked to you before about the compound words of the Greeks. They just, especially the apostles, Paul especially, they love compound words. Um,
Hmm.
the Greeks just they the New Testament's full of compound words, and the word that is translated obey or obedience, if we're going to be accurate,
Hmm.
is hupo akuo. The New Testament clarifies to us what obedience is. The Greek, in the transliteration of it, I would pronounce it hupa akai.
Hmm.
Others would say it differently, regardless. It's the same word, however you want. Nobody knows really how they said it back
Tomato,
then.
tomato. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But if you look at it, you have the first word, which is hupo, and
Hmm.
then the second word, which is both are roots, akai.
Hmm.
And hupo means under
Hmm.
or submit, submission.
Okay.
It means to submit. And akai means to hear. So I translate it to submit to hearing. And
Hmm.
when I did that, the entire Bible began to change
Yeah.
because I began to understand what had happened to me all those years previously
Hmm.
when I had spent months and months and months going over the Word of God in my mind, the Word of God as I translate it, not as others translate it. And
Hmm.
I would be going over and over, and I'd be thinking about the words, and I'd be talking to myself about the words. I'd be writing them down to help me remember them. And I would be putting the words, I'd be putting myself in the word. How does the word apply to me? And whatever it was, hupa kai is what I was doing. And
Hmm.
what happened is that began, and I didn't realize this was going to happen to me. I was doing this because I was so hungry to
Hmm.
hear these words, these
Hmm.
phrases, these verses over and
Hmm.
over and over. I was inside craving to hear God's words, what God was really saying. And when he'd say something, I would repeat it and I'd repeat it and I'd repeat it and I'd repeat it. And little did I realize till after it happened that I was doing obedience, that
Hmm.
obeying was not doing what I was told to do. Obeying was pondering and thinking and submitting to hearing.
Hmm.
Obeying is what Mary was doing when the story of Martha and Mary, where Jesus said Mary had chosen the good part and it will not be taken from her. She was just sitting at Jesus' feet, listening,
mm,
hearing what he had to say, pondering what he had to say. And that is what I was doing. And for months and months and months in a time that we'll talk about sometime, but where I needed something and I didn't know where else to go except to what God had said. And all I did is I wasn't trying to do what God said. I wasn't trying to do anything. I just loved hearing the words, that there was something about the words, that they were doing something in my mind. They were doing
mm,
something in my heart. It's how you go to church and the pastor says something that just really latches onto you, and it,
mm,
it, it makes you feel good.
mm,
Well, that's what happened. I kept going over these words and over them and over them and over them. We're talking about I just determined I wasn't going to quit. I couldn't get enough of the same words. I wasn't
mm,
always looking for something new. When one thing would hit me, I would be focused on that phrase, that single word, the verse, maybe the whole passage. It depended, but I
mm,
would I would zero in on it and continue to ruminate on it, and it literally
mm,
changed me.
mm.
And it changed me in a way that didn't require any additional effort on my part.
Right.
I didn't have to try to obey God.
Mm,
I didn't even
right.
care about obeying. In fact, I told God, I don't care about obeying you based
Right.
on what I've been taught. I
Yeah.
care about hearing what you said, and I it will change me, because now I had experience that it changed me, and
Yeah.
I'm still doing the same. I don't know if I made much sense just now, but
You made, I think you
yeah,
made good enough sense, and then God picks up the slack, right? And you know what? I was thinking of two things. One, um, you've had teenagers. I have some still, and have had other teenagers that are grown now, but um you know what drove me nuts as a parent was, hey buddy, I need you to, and they go, I know, I know, I got it. And I was like, I don't think you do got it because you're
yeah,
not getting what I'm saying. And oh my gosh, that drove me nuts. I'm sure you heard it from your kids. I think most parents hear it from their kids. You want to tell them something, and they're just so quick to go, I got it. And you're like, but you don't. Like, you just don't. And the other thing I thought of was, there was one time I was talking to my oldest about something, and he was kind of, yeah, I know. And then a little while later, he came back home, and he had been hanging out with some other friends that were adults, good adults in his life and stuff. And he came back and he said, Dad, they said the same thing you said. And I guess I just didn't like how you said it or something, but like I heard the same thing from them, and I just was like, "Oh my gosh, that's what my dad said." And these guys, I know these guys like me and want to hang out and enjoy me and stuff, and my dad said the same thing to me about me, and he was just so, you know, um he was not impressed. He was just almost surprised. He was like, I did not hear you saying that. Like, I mean, I heard you saying it, but I didn't understand what you were saying to me until this other person said something that lined up with it, and I was like, "Oh, that's what my dad says. Like, that's what he's been saying." And so he was hearing me. He was doing the akuo, right? He was doing the akuo part.
right.
He was listening and listening. Yeah, okay, I hear what you're saying, but that submitting to going, oh, okay, all right, what do you mean? What is this really about? And it took some other people talking to him that to kind of click in his head, but those were the things I was thinking of.